Bro,
How's it going?
good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. So, I want to talk about like The Chosen, obviously, and all of that. But before, I always start from like childhood. Like, what was home life like for you? What was like your, like school? Did you make good grades? What were your parents like parenting styles? Were they like, more what's the word, permissive or disciplinary? Like, what was that whole dynamic like?
Super interesting. So my parents are divorced. They got
Yeah.
divorced when I was like 3 years old. So
Same dude.
that's
Nice.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I think
Look
I
at
was three as
us.
well. Yeah.
But I didn't really ever know them together. And so I think in some ways that makes it a lot easier, or at least it did in my
For
experience.
sure.
When people talk about their parents getting divorced being a super sort of traumatic thing for them, I never experienced that. I was
Yeah.
just like, they were always divorced, essentially. But I think that in terms of parenting styles, like it's pretty interesting. I once like middle school hit, my mom, I remember having a conversation with me. She was like, I won't check on you about your homework. Have you done it yet? When are you doing it? Are you studying for your tests? What are your grades like leading up? And then she was like, once your report card comes at the sort of midpoint of the year, like if you're if something's not going well, then I'm gonna have to step in and like make sure you're doing your homework and all this stuff. But if you can manage it, like if you're, I want you to figure out how to manage yourself in terms of schooling.
Yeah.
And if you're managing it, you're on like the leash is long. You can figure out how that works for you. I don't want to tell you like you can't go play with friends because you haven't done your homework yet.
Yeah.
So I took that as like, that is a great deal. Like,
Yeah.
I will completely manage my own sort of structuring how I interact with school. If it means like I get to do whatever I want, I just have to be a good student still. The only thing was, I was a very good test taker, but I also knew how to game the system, like way more than was, for my own good. And it was great because it sort of allowed me I never was stressed about school, like literally ever. And a lot of kids would be stressed about that. And I just like breezed,
Yeah.
breezed through. But later on in life, I really had to figure out how to discipline myself in terms of doing things that I don't like to do. It's still like my main, I would say, challenge in life when it comes to being productive is like
Yeah.
if it's something I don't want to do, it's very, very difficult for me to
Yeah.
find my way in.
I relate to all of that so much because my mom and dad divorced. I think I was three as well. I may have been four, but it was around that same age. And it was always, I'm so glad they got a divorce because I love them
Mhm.
both, but they're very different and they are just my childhood would have been totally different than it was, and I'd probably be a totally different person if they didn't get a divorce. Because I feel like they clash so much in their parenting styles. Now they get along
Mm.
great. One thing though, you mentioning always knowing them as being divorced, that's how I was too. And I remember one day I was in ICU. I'm going to tell another depressing story. On my deathbed as a child.
Oh my
No,
god.
I'm in ICU as like a 9-year-old kid, and
Uh,
it was terrifying because like it was with asthma. They were thinking of like having to intubate me and
oh my,
put me in a
yeah.
coma and all this stuff. And while I was there, I was really scared because there was a curtain separating my bed from another bed, and the other kid that was in the room with me was also there for asthma. He was in like a very similar situation. And we both had pneumonia. We were really bad off, and he didn't make it. And he was about my age. And I remember it's one of the most traumatic memories I have, but I remember his parents and their reaction to that and just being horrified that like, oh, I'm next. It's going to happen to me now.
Oh,
And I remember laying there and my mom telling me like, Jordan, you're going to get worse. You have to sleep, because I didn't want to sleep. I was afraid if I went to sleep I wouldn't wake up. And then one day the doctor came in and like took my parents out of the room, and was explaining like, we're going to have to put him in a coma if he doesn't improve in the next day. And so as they were, I could see them through the little window of the room, and my mom and dad hugged each other. And I was like,
Wow.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm a goner. Like my mom and dad are hugging each
Yeah.
other. And that was one of the scariest things. And that I was like, okay, fine. I'll go to sleep because that's my last ditch effort, because I know it's bad if my parents are being affectionate. But it was so bizarre, like seeing them
Yeah. Yeah.
be
Yeah.
affectionate in that way. But anyway, moving on from the depressing stuff.
No,
So
no, it's that's a fascinating moment in a kid's
from a
life,
child's
in your
perspective,
life.
yeah,
Yeah, that you see this thing that is representational of like, if it's like that,
yeah,
I must change. Even at 9 years old, it's funny
yeah,
what
yeah, exactly. But then in high school, um it was one of those things where like my, and I want to talk about this too, but like I only went to actual high school for 1 year, but then getting picked on and stuff, I homeschooled after that because I was like, school isn't for me. I just want to
I did
act,
not know that.
trying to impress people and fit in. That became my priority, where I didn't even try with school, or like with the schoolwork. And then when the bullying got really bad, eventually I told my mom, like, I just want to start going out to LA more and trying to make this happen. So can I homeschool? When it comes to like bullying, I know that you had some, like, that you got bullied at times too, but both of our reactions to it was very different. You were more of like a fighter, and then I was like, I would curl up in a ball and wait for someone to break it up. So it was different reactions. But I wanted to talk about like, what was your experience being bullied in school, and like go into like how you responded to it.
Totally. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. So when I was a kid, we moved when I was going into fourth grade. And that was seemed like a very sort of, I don't know, um it just seemed like a total shift in my life because I went to a new elementary school where I didn't know anyone. And before then, everyone's just kind of little. Like, you're not really, I don't know. I didn't experience much. I didn't even sort of wasn't aware of like different
Yeah.
friend groups or anything. It was like you're
Yeah.
just in a class.
You're
Like,
not
there was,
comparing yourself to anyone. You're
yes,
just kind of
zero of that.
you. Yeah.
And then there was a shift when I got into fourth grade, and it was a total new school, and I was always like one of the shortest kids in class, like that. And so I just had this like massive Napoleon complex, like as a kid,
Yeah.
because like I was small for my age, and so it was like a hair trigger of like if someone pushed me or something, like, oh, like, screw the new kid, I would like way way overcorrect, and I'd be like, I will die if it means that I can take you down with me. And that it sort of carved out a spot for myself where they were like, oh, like, this kid's insane. And so we shouldn't bully him because he will like fight back.
You do have this like aura of just like being like chill and laid back and not really letting much bother you. But there are moments, particularly when you're acting, like if you're preparing for a heavy scene, since like there I remember last season there were a couple scenes like that. This season there's been some, and where I can see you just kind of off to the side, like you'll be joking around and we're getting close to rolling, and you just kind of sit there, and like I just see you looking off, and it's like that's not someone I would want to mess with, because just the expression on your face, and it's I can see that it's still in there, the rage, but it's channeled a little better than it maybe was back then.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah.
it's I'm sure it does come in handy not only for acting, but like you said, for those real life instances where it's good to have a little bit of fire.
Can I say, I think that it's so funny because the different ways that we have dealt with people treating us badly, because that's really
Yeah.
what it comes down to, is like
Yeah.
people disrespecting you and treating you badly. But it's funny because you have like a superhuman ability. I don't think I've ever talked to you about this. Maybe I have, but you have this like superhuman ability to like, in the face of it's seemingly any adversity, you like can laugh it, you shrug it off. It's like, you know it's just what comes off you like water. Like you are so able to I don't know, move through any sort of contentious moment or anything, and literally like laughing. Like it's, if anything's going wrong, like let's even say when we're filming and it's like, whoa, we're gonna be here for like 5 more hours than we thought we were gonna be,
Yeah.
or like no food or so, whatever that is, like you more than anyone else I literally know in my life would be like, okay, and everyone else is like freaked out or they're agitated, and you like it seriously feels like you cannot be pushed off your axis. Like you have such a grounded sense where the environment around you would have to be like a typhoon to move you off your axis, and I feel like I struggle with that because of that, the um the sort of agitation that can build up in me, that it's like if something happens it can move me off my axis pretty quick. So I have to move off and be alone when I'm like preparing for a thing, because
Right. Yeah.
I need to be in my own space. I want to control my environment, know what's going on. But I really do feel like you are so tethered to your, to yourself, that it's seriously, do you know this about yourself, that
I
you
Yeah, I mean, it does take a lot to phase me at this point. It wasn't always the case, and I do, believe it or
When
not.
did that shift? Because it's so strong in you. Like
Yeah,
more, I don't know anyone else that has that to that level.
I'd say like it happened. It all happened in a short amount of time. I started feeling super insecure just before high school, and then I was struggling with a lot. I had like a lot of anger and bitterness and resentment, and then somewhere like within that next year, something shifted where I don't know what it was exactly, but where I started to view all of the people that were picking on me as humans, and I started really feeling bad for them, and knowing that they were, they learned that from someone else, and
Even at like
it,
what, at like 15?
14, 15, yeah, and it
Wow.
was it was something just because I knew how bad it made me feel, but then I knew they must have learned that from someone else,
Yeah.
and that kind of helped me start viewing things like when things do go wrong on set or in life in general. It's pretty easy for me to like look at it from the perspective of one, it can always be worse, and then two, um that things happen, and like on set, like if we have to be there another 5 hours, yeah, it sucks, I'm tired, I'm hungry, I'm sunburnt, but it's like I'm having fun, this is like
Yeah,
what I want to
totally.
do, and it's and maybe it's the medical issues I've gone through, like where that's helped me learn to cherish what I'm like, cherish the moment, because I've had some near death experiences. But I do have a rage as well deep down, that like when it
Hmm.
does come up, I have there's definitely a temper, but it just takes, I have a very long fuse. And
Mm.
then once that fuse runs out, it's like the the
Yeah.
flip of a switch. It's like I'm just seeing red. Um and the few times, it doesn't happen often, but few times it did, especially as a kid, like I was a kid, I punched holes in my wall and stuff,
Yeah,
like I
yeah,
get
yeah, yeah.
really mad. And
We're not
it
taught well, like, as I feel like it's funny because there's a lot of, you know, I think a lot about the way that masculinity is portrayed in media, and the way that we sort of internalize certain things. I 100% did, and to me, like
yeah,
James Bond was always the epitome of being masculine, and that kind of messed with my understanding of like as a kid, like this as a little kid, I would watch James Bond and be like, wow, like, and that can mess with you because you're like, why would James Bond treats women a certain way? Like
yeah,
that's not good. You're like constantly killing people. Like there's this weird thing, and I think that is normal for boys. When we were in middle school and high school, to feel this like aggression coming up and like not have a good channel for it, not understand how to deal with sort of these, like, to me it would be like blackout rages out of nowhere, little things,
yeah,
and then punch a hole in a wall or something. And I feel like it's definitely one of those things where until you grow up and be like, oh, okay, that's obviously not okay. Like,
Yeah.
how do boys
I don't know.
maneuver through that period of time, you know?
I think it's one of those things. It's like maybe anger is really the only acceptable form of emotion that we're allowed to express. Like it's only a way
Totally.
we're really allowed to express ourselves as kids based on what we're seeing from the rest of the world and from our society and everything where
Yeah,
it's
because it's
like
like cool to be angry in a
yeah,
way.
yeah. Like if a dude gets mad and punches someone else, it's like, "Oh, that was badass, bro." Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's like, but if you get mad and you start crying, it's like, "Oh, look at this little bitch." And it's like,
Yeah, 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 totally.
you can't show any other emotion. That's why um crying like in on camera or in class was really hard for me. I've always been really in touch with my emotions. I've never felt embarrassed to cry consciously, but
Hmm.
subconsciously in classes or in auditions, whenever I'm required to cry in a scene, it was really difficult sometimes for me to get there. And I think it was that. I think it was the fact
Hmm.
that, my dad, who I love, but he was a Marine and a cop and like just very authoritative. And I
Hmm.
remember getting in trouble as a kid and crying, and you're always told to like dry it up or, that
Hmm.
kind of like mindset. So then all of a sudden, when there's times where I had to cry, my body and my mind was just like, no, don't do it. You're not supposed to do
Right.
it. As a society, it's kind of like we've failed a lot, like all of these
Hmm.
generations of men by not allowing them to express themselves in other ways. And I think it's so important moving forward to, teach men that it is okay to feel these things. It is okay to cry. It is okay to talk about your feelings. That's why everyone needs therapy too. Why that was had like this
Totally.
stigma around it for a while.
It's also why I think, say what you will about us actors, there are certain things that we're really good at, and I do think that taking a personal inventory and realizing like, oh, these things really upset me, or like this makes me
Yeah.
happy, so I should have more of that in my life, and that's like our job is like figuring out those things that are triggers in us for certain types of behavior or certain things, and so we're more likely to be aware maybe of
Yeah.
when something's really upsetting us, when what kind of things are like terrible, as my cat's going like, "Rah!" I'm like, what's happening with my cat? Well, what do we need to let out?
Yeah,
But
right.
but yeah, I feel like it's been helpful. Like I remember one of my acting teachers saying like, well, I mean, even if you all don't become actors, you'll be great in therapy.
The Chosen, and I've explained this to a lot of fans when I've had people ask about this, like ask about all of our faith or lack thereof or whatever,
Mm,
is that I think that's one of the things that makes it so accessible is that we have people of like pretty much any religion that you can think of that are part of
yeah,
the
yeah.
cast or crew. And I think it's so cool seeing all of these people from different backgrounds and walks of lives and different experiences with faith and relationships with it come together and tell this story where we all really do want to do it justice. We know
Hmm.
the weight of it and how important it is to so many people. Um, and the way it's written, I know like it's easy to connect to the material regardless of where everyone stands on their faith. But it's been cool being a part of this where it's like I think we've all um been exposed to like different cultures or people within like different denominations of Christianity, whether it's like Catholicism or
Hmm.
LDS or whatever, and meeting these different people and seeing how all of it's different. It's just been really interesting kind of learning so much about different groups that I was previously kind of ignorant to.
Hmm.
So, but on the flip side, I've also found it interesting that there may be portions of the fan base that like disagree with some of our opinions on certain things, and we may get pushback on social media, for instance,
Yeah,
for
totally.
posting about something. And but I found it like I almost feel a duty or a responsibility to speak up about certain things in a loving way, because I know that a lot of the people that follow may not have ever been exposed to certain opinions outside of their own echo chamber. And that's something like for my big thing currently is with all of the gun violence happening,
Uh,
I'm very passionate about talking about it. And
mhm.
it's pissed some people off, like having kids, especially. The thought, it terrifies me regardless, like even before kids. So I've talked about it and talked about, like, presented some opinions. Have you found yourself doing anything similar? And what's been kind of your experience in doing that? And how do you balance like stating your opinion and staying firm in your belief, but also trying to like not make people feel disrespected or alienated? Like, how have you been able to balance that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Like, I mean, there's so much to this. I'll try to frame it as
Yeah.
best as I can.
Sorry, that's like a pretty
No,
loaded
no,
question.
no, it's amazing. No, it's a great. It's just so I could talk about this forever. Like that's why I want to make it. It basically, I come from the outside of this entire sort of the world of the show. Like
Yeah.
I'm a Jewish guy who's not. I don't go to temple, but my family's Jewish. We're very connected to our Jewish roots, and but secular Judaism. Like it's in
Yeah.
terms of not going to temple or anything, but from me on the outside, it's been fascinating to see. First of all, just being in the scenes, right, and literally hearing a lot of the messages, a lot of Jesus's messages, what he's literally talking about in the scenes, and I go like, wow, what a lovely message,
Yeah.
and yet dot dot dot, I feel some hypocrisy in people who purport to be
Followers of that method.
but
Yeah.
and yet do the exact opposite of that message. And
Yeah.
so I have been thinking long and hard, and I think it's really important because that is what pushes people away from certain belief systems if they see hypocrisy in
Yeah.
others who tend to follow it. Now, that doesn't mean the thing in and of itself is hypocritical, because it's not. And when you look at the messages of Jesus's teachings, like it's pretty clear what
Yeah.
he's
Pretty
talking about.
straightforward. Yeah.
And yet human beings will be hypocritical about anything, any walk of
Yeah.
life. You will find human beings who believe, from this all the way to that, any belief system, walk of life, you will find hypocritical people in those
They'll
sort of,
use it to justify
of
every
course,
possible thing.
justify
Yeah.
anything. And we've seen that throughout history for all time,
Yeah.
in religious circles, in non-religious circles. Human beings just tend to exert their will and power over others and use whatever they can to justify it.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating sometimes when I see, some of the scenes, and people will connect to it, but then I'll get a message on social media being like, I hope you die. It's something like if I share a view, if I
Yeah.
share a political view or something, and I'm like, dude, that is not the way. Like I
Yeah.
just don't. Now, again, most people are very loving and kind, and it's not, but I think it's really important. I really do believe this, that, because first of all, if you're a fan of the show, you're going to agree with a lot of people who make the show, and you're going to disagree with a lot of people who make the show, because, like what you said, we come from all different backgrounds, all
Yeah.
over the political spectrum, all of that. So like you're going to disagree or agree with a lot of us. I'm not like uber far left, but I'm like pretty left
Yeah.
leaning in
We're
terms of
actors, dude.
we're
Yeah.
actors, and that's the thing. I'm like, dude, if you're gonna be upset because you disagree with actors on a show, like actors by and large are going to be pretty far left, just the nature of what draws us to acting. Open-minded, want to explore art. Like we don't want to go into a
Yeah.
normal job. Like you're dealing with a group of people who we're like theater makers. We would be like on a wagon riding into some
Yeah.
weird town putting on a puppet show. Like
Yeah.
you're not dealing with who you may think you're dealing with, and so we're theater makers, we're filmmakers.
Right.
So you're dealing with those kind of people. I think it's super important that people from different walks of life and belief systems and political beliefs, that we have honest conversations and we don't ascribe to the other side like the worst values that we possibly could think of
Yeah.
because they disagree with us. Because, first of all, it's just not true.
Hmm.
For the most part, everyone's trying to make the world a better place, and they're doing it in the best way that they think they know how. And then we just disagree about the details
Yeah.
and what can take us there. And something that I really respond to in the Jewish tradition is there's a real strong emphasis placed on questioning. It's all
Yeah.
like, question it. Does that make sense? Does it though? Does it? Do you really
Yeah.
understand it? Maybe you don't. Maybe you've built a foundation, just like what Jesus says in Sermon on the Mount. Don't build your house on sand. You
Hmm.
know, build it on firm foundation. And I think it's really hard for people. People hear that and they go, yeah, good thing I didn't. And it's like,
Yeah.
you really may have, though. And all of us may have. And you really, it takes a lot of bravery and openness to look deep. And I mean, a lot of people take it for granted and they go, yeah, I looked. It's not on sand. And it's like,
Yeah.
honestly, very well could be. A hot button issue of the day is trans rights.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people could say, like, yeah, I understand it and I don't like it. And it's like, I guarantee if you have that response, you're not looking deeply enough. Like, if we were actors looking at that script and you're looking at those lines, you don't really know what you're saying yet. Because have you sat down and had coffee with a trans person?
Right.
And have you been
Or
like,
drag queens. That's another, like,
drag
it's a similar thing. Yeah.
100%. Like, do you really, or are you just responding to the idea of the thing? And so some people then can think, if they don't know anyone in the LGBTQ community, they can think like, oh, they're just, you know, it's
Yeah.
some
They're
it's
missing
sinful.
out if they don't.
Yeah, they're sinful and they, you know, but it's like, you definitely don't have a loved one who's in the community. And if you do, have you allowed them the space to be open with you
Yeah.
about their life and the way they walk through it and the challenges they face? And, you know, and if you do, you probably would come to a greater understanding of like, okay, we're all human beings.
Yeah.
We all have our struggles and challenges.
And it's okay if you don't understand everything.
Yes,
Like, that's
totally.
okay. Because I've heard a lot
Yes.
of people speaking of trans rights that they're like, I just don't understand it. And it's like, you wouldn't, because
Yeah, it's like, oh, of course.
I don't either, because
No, neither do I. And that's, yes. And
and that's
it's a
okay.
thing. It's totally okay. And of
Yeah.
course, and this idea on the left that we deal with that I'm not a fan of like, well, right away, like if someone doesn't understand it completely and they're not on board, then like, get
Yeah.
out of here. We don't want to talk. It's like, no, it's okay for someone to not understand it. We really need to have a conversation about it so that we can, if the goal is for people to live in unity and live better and treat others with respect, then we do need to treat others with respect.
I love that. Yeah. On the left, there's not as much room to ask those questions or to be like,
Right.
wait a minute, like, or for grace, for growth.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
like
That's what I mean.
cancel culture thing, you know, stuff
Yes.
like that, where, but then on the flip side, on the right, their questioning isn't typically something that's promoted, like being curious about things.
Mhm.
It's kind of like, no, at least from my experience growing up in the South, in the Bible Belt, it's kind of like, this is the way it is. Like, you don't question this. And if you ask, it's like, because I said so, because the Bible said so, because
Yeah.
your pastor said so, because your parents said so. But I think that, like, we should be always promoting curiosity and asking questions and allowing people a safe place to grow and to learn.
Challenge your own mind, and that becomes a very scary thing to do. And
Yeah.
people then will say, "Uh-oh, you're being led astray." And it's like, no, it's okay to question. If in fact our entire world is made better by questioning and saying, and then being receptive to the answers.
Yeah.
Because then you may question and someone has a really good answer, and then you go, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I guess you're right." And
Yeah.
that we have to do that as well.
Right.
No matter where you're from, we do have to approach things with a healthy curiosity and
Yeah.
skepticism, even, because otherwise you're just taking everything as fact, and
Yeah.
you're led astray very easily if you approach.
Very, yeah, like the Black Lives Matter protests and things like that. Before that, I remember my dad was a cop, my brother's a cop.
Right.
I've never feared for my life. I've had a lot of interactions with police. I've been arrested. I got probably 24 tickets as a teenager. I did all sorts of stupid stuff, and I
Hmm.
never felt like my life was in danger because
Right.
of the color of my skin. So
Right.
therefore, growing up, it was hard because of what I'm told. It was like, no, like you just have to listen to what the police are saying and you'll be fine. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
fight back. That's what's going to cause a problem. And I was like, oh, I'm like, that's all it is. And I didn't consider that there are people that have experiences that are different than my own.
Hmm.
And that once I started to look inward and realize, like, oh, that was one, a very privileged perspective that I didn't realize was privilege at the time. But two, then I started looking at other aspects of my life, and I started remembering, like, maybe someone would tell a joke that wasn't the most politically correct that I may have
Hmm.
laughed at in school, or things like that. That looking back, I'm like, oh, that wasn't the most sensitive or empathetic way to react to that. We all do have certain biases that we are taught, or certain things that we're taught that, like, aren't representative of the truth. And we
100%.
have to
Yeah.
humble ourselves and look in the mirror sometimes and be like, okay, what don't I understand about this plight that this person is dealing with, or this struggle that this person has? What don't I understand, and how can I better understand that? And I think that's so important for all of us to do, because I mean,
I
every day, constantly, we're all growing, or should be at least.
I feel like my journey in The Chosen has been, in a way, really has solidified that for me. And before I entered into The Chosen, again, like I'm from the outside of any sort of religious community, like I don't have that community in my life.
Yeah.
So to
I
me,
hope you have fun
I
in hell.
viewed it, huh?
I said, I hope you have fun in hell.
As I sink lower and lower in my so I like approached it, my views of maybe organized religion were
Sure.
like, have definitely changed since joining The Chosen, because again, like I didn't understand um deeply religious people. I
Sure.
really didn't understand it. I didn't understand, and I viewed it not, I mean, when it was loving and wonderful in the community and stuff, I was like, that's amazing. But then
Yeah.
when someone would be like, we don't like Jews, I'm like, okay, that's bad. I don't enjoy that. And so
Yeah.
so I had a shield up
Yeah.
against sort of organized religion, but entering into The Chosen, it was one of those things where I go, oh, like I have a lens into a community that I never did before. I got to know a lot of people who are religious and
Yeah.
who are deeply so, deeply
Sure.
religious,
Yeah.
and being like, whoa, we have so much more in common than you might
Dude.
think. And even if we disagree, maybe culturally there are other things, but it's like I now realized I wasn't showing grace to a lot of people because I just
Yeah.
judged the book by the cover, just like maybe deeply religious in certain traditions would judge, like we were talking about, again, like Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
right? That they're like, no, all lives matter. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, do you know what we're talking about here? Of course, all life. That's not what we're talking about. We're not saying your
That's
life
what
doesn't
we're
matter.
saying. That's what
Only,
we're trying to, like,
yes,
that's
that
why
is
we're saying
literally the
Black Lives
point.
Matter. Yeah.
And so I realized, like, oh, I'm not offering the grace that I'm wanting
Yeah.
for me and maybe the communities that I feel closer to. But I wasn't offering that same amount
Sure.
of grace. And so it's been a journey for me as I sort of embrace the idea that I probably don't know what it's like in these communities and what these people are like. And I have been judging when I should not have
Yeah.
judged. And I'm really trying to dive head first into that direction. And because I think the world becomes a better place.
I know you got to go soon. So, lastly, since we do talk about a lot about the things we struggled with or have been insecure
Mhm.
about, I always end by asking, what's the thing you love most about yourself?
Wow. What's the thing? Hmm. What's the thing I love most about myself? I'm like, there's so much to choose from.
Right?
No, but um, it's very, very important to me to make others' lives better, even if it's just momentarily in interactions that we could have, or by seeing a piece of art, or by reading a book that I recommend. Like a goal of mine is to leave the world at least a slightly better place than when I walked around in it.
Yeah.
And I think that that infiltrates like everything in my life. It's what kind of artist I want to be. Like I want to work in a certain thing and put my entire heart and being into roles because I feel like it'll tell a better story. People will connect to it better. It will make them, like let's say we tell certain stories on The Chosen about uh whatever treating others the way they ought to be treated, and maybe someone sees that and then they treat their daughter or son better than they were before, or they
Yeah.
read something that we wrote, or just I just want to inspire joy and positivity and a celebration of humanity. I really, really do. And I think that for the most part, I try to live that out in my life. I want my friends to be having good lives, my partner to have a good life, my family. I try to notice in myself when I'm detracting, if I'm letting something get in the way. I'm super agitated. Like again, like what I said, as I grew up, I was just agitated
Yeah.
all the time. And I'm trying to constantly balance myself out so that I may be more of a force for good in the world. And I do that my own way. Like I'm an artist, and that's how I do it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer who do it in their very particular way. I'm an artist, and I just try to cultivate that in my life as much as possible. And I I just it's just something that I really, really value, and so I've made that a sort of mission of mine.
All of that, but also uh you're one of the most energetic and funniest people I know. But then you also can get real when you need to. Like some people are just clowns all the time, which are
Mm,
great. Like I think they there's a lot of people that like I love that, and I want to be around those people in certain moods and when I'm feeling certain things. But you're someone that it's like you can be really funny and energetic, but then if I'm like, hey dude, can I talk to you about something, you're like, oh yeah dude, let's do it. And you can be there and get vulnerable with people, and you genuinely have a love for the people around you, which is very apparent. But also I don't know if you feel this or not, because it doesn't seem like it's necessarily uh you trying to like take charge, but I think you have a very strong leadership role within our cast. You feel like one of our leaders, and there's times where it's like we're all joking around, but you're one of the people like that's always aware that like, oh hey guys, George has an emotional moment in this scene. Let's all just kind of like, whenever he's in the tent, let's all just kind of chill out a little bit, not like give him some space to focus on what he needs to focus on, and doing things like that, where you're very aware of what the rest of us in the cast need on certain days or in certain moments, and you do a great job at trying to facilitate that. So
wow, thank
yeah,
you so much, man. That's
of
it's
course.
very kind of you to say, and I think that it's a lot of the, we're all every human being is unique and valuable and
Yeah.
worthy, and I feel like that's one of the absolute joys in life is like interacting like this right now, you and I connecting with every single person that you come across. And I definitely try, I appreciate that, but I try to, um, I try to cultivate an environment where people can really be themselves and be open and have fun, but also be, if whatever the moment is calling for, like if they're like you said, like if you need to talk, it's like, let's do that because it's what you need. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that we're all, we are all very, very valuable. And I just think that it's like a gold mine. The ability to sort of connect with other human beings and make sure that they're, you know, they feel their own value.
Yeah.
and and I totally, if I can just say about you, that I think that that's, again, speaking to like that superhuman power of yours to not get thrown off your axis. I think you allow those around you to be even more themselves. Like there's no, I've never even seen a moment of you judging other people, of you throwing toxicity in the air, which some people, a lot of people, like, you can be very positive and feel great, and then all of a sudden you have to be there, you've had 2 hours of sleep, and all of a sudden you're like spewing toxic, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
I need to calm down. I've never seen a moment where you bring anything other than love to the table, and it's so clear in your family, it's clear like on set, and so it's just like it's a like serious pleasure to be your friend. I seriously love you,
I
like,
love
with
you
all
too,
my
man.
heart. I think you're just like an amazing dude. I'm so thankful to have gotten to know you, and that we're in each other's lives. I seriously, I'm
Same,
I'm
dude.
so I'm so glad.
I'm
Dude, and
gonna
you do this podcast. It's literally like, of course, you have a podcast about this. Like, this is you are, that's part of your, you're inspiring others with your story, and just letting other people be themselves and know that it's okay to be yourself.